person as a lawyer, one's duty is not to just be very good at presenting yourself in the court. It's to have that intention to be solution oriented, to tell the people responsible that this is the realistic judgment.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Superlawyer YouTube channel. Today we are delighted to welcome Advocate Kunal Sinha sir. Sir is a seasoned litigation and dispute resolution lawyer with over 8 years of experience appearing before the Supreme Court, Delhi High Court, NCLT, NCDRC, and various other courts. He is the panel for the Honorable Supreme Court for Bihar State Warehousing Corporation, the Central Warehouse Corporation, and Punjab National Bank, and routinely advises on complex civil, commercial, and arbitration matters. Backed by international training and an MBA in data protection and privacy management, his diverse clientele includes major real estate developers, private clients, and multinational companies in the food and pharma sector. We are truly pleased to have you with us, sir, today. My name is Anshay and I work as an associate with the Superlawyer team. At Superlawyer, we showcase inspiring journeys of legal professionals, offering valuable insights that greatly motivate and benefit our readers, which are young lawyers and the legal community at large. I request Divya ma'am to now please continue with the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshi, and thank you, Kunal, for being here. And I hope you'll enjoy the conversation we are going to have. Let me introduce you to me. I'm Divya Divedi. I'm the team lead at Super Lawyers. And I do enjoy taking a lot of interviews of lawyers who are not only making their name, but also finding new niche to show the younger generation that everything can be accomplished, like we have today with us, Kunal, who has now more than 8 years of experience, where he has been appearing before Supreme Court of India, Delhi High Court, and various tribunals also. So doing all that, initially, when did you develop this particular interest related to law? What was the inspiration? Why did you choose law? It usually is not a very sought after field, used to be. Now it has become. So please let us know.
Yes, absolutely. I think if I have to go back in time, is around my high school and why I chose law. I had a keen sense of justice. I wanted to do the right thing, stand up for what's right. More than anything, I was also, I believe, influenced by a lot of novels and movies. It would instill a lot of pride in me when I see a lawyer really fighting for justice on screen, things like those. So those were the points which sort of nudged me in this direction to explore more about it. Later on, I mean, I always had a inherent attraction towards psychology. I used to read a lot of Sigmund Freud and criminal psychology and other things just out of interest. And somehow at that time, I think, especially around that time when I was graduating high school, things were really looking up. A lot of law schools were opening, especially what really, I think, made a difference in my life personally is around that time, Jindal Global Law School really came up. And I was really in awe reading about it. And so Jindal sort of pulled me in this direction. I also cleared CLAT exam. I hope it's the same exam now. And so I cleared one of these NLUs. The first week, I was like, no, I'm going to drop out of law because it brought me back to the things which I hated the most, the monotony. The way it was taught there in the government institution was a lot of just reading out things. The professor would come and everybody would start taking notes. And I was like, what is this happening? Why can't we just share the notes online or come to what's important? Maybe talk about law, talk about how you apply law instead of just everybody copying the exact same thing which a professor is narrating. I found it extremely useless. The way of teaching, this traditional way of teaching, when I moved to Jindal Global Law School, I was really impressed the way they were teaching. And it was a lot of hypothetical, research oriented, open book examinations, no note taking. Notes were like up to you how you want to take it. There will be slides which will be shared after class. So you already have everything what has been taught to you. So a lot of technologically advanced way of teaching, which would mirror, I think, a lot of universities abroad. And we had a lot of faculty from abroad as well. So it was just all those mix of things which made me understand law, and that initial attraction happened that pulled me into the career. It wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for my alma mater, and especially the way technology is used, and there's a break from monotony of just remembering case laws or remembering citations, remembering these sections. I mean, we had open book. So all the questions were very hypothetical. I would just conclude this. I was saying that it's a mix of a lot of legal dramas, which I saw in the movies, mix of novels, inclination towards criminal psychology, and a contribution of the university. All of them had played a role. Strictly from a point of view of going to university for a job, I think that wasn't my intention. I really liked it. And my family, we come from a sort of family which is engineering plus MBA is equal to an IT job, something like that. So it was a tried and tested path for success. You try to do an IIT, then IIM, and then you get a great job. Then you move to US and you settle. That is sort of the ladder in which my family saw success. So this was really a breaking tradition sort of a thing for me to do law.
So from home to your work, you are breaking traditions. And even at your college where you attended your law
Yeah.
program, all this diversity, is it the reason of the diversity in your practice as well? And what kind of difference do you see when you interact with your peers or fellow colleagues and realize that, okay, the kind of practice I'm doing and what they are doing, there is a huge difference in understanding itself, although all of us practice law. So, how do you encourage yourself in that particular situation? Another thing, how do you bring in the kind of learnings that you have had at your alma mater, and now that you are finally practicing and have your own law firm? How have you implemented all this in your life as
Again, very difficult to word it in a few sentences, but I would say it's a contribution of a lot of things. Let's say the first limb of your question about my colleagues. I would say that all my colleagues have been extremely, extremely smart, winners of different moot courts and all when we were in university. So a lot of depth friends and everything. I think the difference which I saw was that they had a more structured way of growing in their profession and a lot of structured internships, a lot of structured interviews to get a job and everything. Well, I wanted my early 20s to be about exploration. So that way I differentiated from my friends. It's definitely better to have a more structured planning and a more concrete way of progressing in career than just going out there in the world and just see what comes your way. So definitely, I think when I was just in law school, I think my every year, like the first year, I would want to be a corporate law. Second year, I would want to be something else. So I could never really have a static thing in my mind. What happened was during the internships, I interned with Indus Law, ITC, different places in different capacities, and I enjoyed the Patiala House Court trial matters the most. While talking to you, I think a lot of self-reflection is happening, and I think again the answer is monotony. So every day you end up learning something new, interact with newer clients. So that way I got pulled towards litigation. Wasn't my first preference in law school because I wanted to get a more stable income, career, and everything. So a lot of good fortune to have landed in chambers where I was not treated just like a junior or just like a person who does research. All the seniors I met, they were very, very good mentors. And I think spending time as a mentee during those formative years are so important. And it depends on your luck as well to fall in these kind of chambers. But that person can really pull you up and teach you a lot. Or you can just do a dedicated task every day and you may not grow at the same speed as somebody who the mentor really wants to help. So what I really realized that a lot of your growth is not just merit, it's a lot of relationship building, how you come across to your mentor, how much trust he has in you. So these trusts, they start from the very basic things like if your senior has asked you to come to court at 9 and you are there at 8:45 every day, every time you never miss a date, these little things really make a big difference. And then they start trusting you with bigger cases, start telling you to handle clients yourself. So a lot of my experience and confidence came because of my seniors who helped me. handheld me to different areas.
So that being said, Kunal, while you were establishing your career, how soon did you decide that you will go for independent practice? Because there is a lot of planning that goes in. Even when you are working with or for someone, you
Mm.
start planning for that. So
Right.
what was that particular reason, or maybe what kind of thought
Mm.
went into deciding this factor so
Mm.
early in your career that you wanted to have your independent practice?
So it was just, let's say, more like a breakfast conversation. One of the designated seniors now, she's a very good lady lawyer in the Supreme Court. And what she's told me was that you can very well be a part of the chambers. We'll refer you cases, you'll do that, do my case, and time will fly and you'll be in your 40s and you'll still be here. She said, take the leap, ask your seniors to refer you cases, open up your thing, and instead of spending time with us, go and pitch to the government PSUs or other places. Spend your time pitching, and not in the way of asking for a job, but more like getting an empanelment and an association. And she said that associations, they never die. You'll always be our friend in this community. But what really matters is that you tend to be comfortable. So once you're comfortable and you might as well reach 40s, and there won't be a day dedicated to, okay, this day he's getting independent. So it's like, if you're just waiting for that spark or that amazing morat or something like that, so that day is gonna be the day. It's not gonna happen. And you just take the leap now. And the best time to take a leap is when you have certain savings, I think. So you have a little bit of savings, you know you can survive for the next 6 months. You take the leap, most likely 6 months you won't be that profitable. But these things only start coming into action when you really go independent. And all these seniors, they were also reminiscing the days they chose to be independent. And she said that there were times she used to cry because she couldn't pay the rentals or the fees of the clerk. But she held herself strong. She managed to push through it. And again, a lot of focus on relationship building, meeting people. Those things are very, very important. So it was sort of a, let's say, cushion which I got from my seniors in initial days. My best clients, the highest paying clients, were the referred clients from my senior. I don't think there were any other way I would have reached these clients if it wasn't for my seniors. So a lot of trust, a lot of confidence they had in me to have referred me like that. So
You must have done many things right to have that particular trust,
yeah,
that vote of confidence from them. And having such kind of mentors and seniors is also a very
yeah,
good luck, because it's not easy to find one. And you
yeah,
have had very good luck in that.
yeah.
In very early stages, like when you started, even before that, you have worked with several companies and variety of law firms, both nationally and internationally, in different capacities. What was the most valuable learning that you had during that time? How did that learning shape your understanding about not only the foundation, about the foundation of the law, but also to pave the way for the foundation of your independent practice as well? How has
Right.
that worked out for you, other than your seniors and
Mm.
mentors being in picture?
Right. With respect to that, especially I think the younger you are, it impacts you a lot more. Like your first jobs would impact the first year of working, has a lot of impact, and then it just gets routine. So there's a very significant impact on the initial years. And I think I was working in Toronto with a barrister there, and a lot of things which I incorporated in terms of, I don't know if it's relevant to this question, but I see a lot of transparency. There's a lesser senior junior gap in these law firms abroad, especially in Toronto or the US culture in general. And there's a lot of opportunity to just meet them without that fear or something that you're talking to a very senior person, which I see quite visible in the law firms here or the kind of practice there is in chambers here in Delhi. So as soon as that comfort level is there, a lot of transparency in terms of what a person will be able to do, what he won't be able to do instead. And you can also ask doubts. I think that's also one of the issues which I faced in law firm here. That comfort level is not built where the associate can just go up to the partner and say, I have this doubt. Can you clarify what exactly do you need from me? What output can I give? and that person is working to the best of his ability, and there's this gap, this unsaid hierarchy where you have to put your head down. So that sort of thing, which I didn't experience in the beginning, gave me a lot of knowledge and understanding with respect to speaking directly to the senior and really discussing things with the senior. And I wasn't just like a cog in the machine, if that's the right metaphor, where you're just doing one part and you're just showing up and doing your thing. And that freedom, that open door policy is something which I experienced early on. I really incorporated that. Other than that, a lot of things like I think somewhere in India, we have this something like a colonial British era archaic way of writing judgments, or these judgments which are often published and all that. It's so complex. It's far away from the comprehension of a layman. And I feel a certain level of clarity and predictableness and structure, which I learned there, and I found it missing here. So I tend to incorporate that in whatever I can do at present in my small office. I try to incorporate things which I learned of transparency and making your clients understand their petitions and not get swayed away by fancy legal lingo, especially when discussing contracts and everything, and try to really simplify for the person who's sitting in front of you, for the client, and especially even how I would present myself in court would also be a lot simpler. I wouldn't just go around beating on the bush with respect to fancy words and everything. So this is something which I have incorporated.
Wow, that shows the kind of learning that you get from working with both national and international law
Yeah.
firms. You have also been empaneled with the Punjab National Bank and Central Warehousing Corporation, where you regularly handle high-stake commercial and civil disputes. What
Hmm.
kind of challenges do you see or face while managing these disputes, keeping in mind that you work for government sector there, and there are multiple stakeholders who are also involved. So you have to take
Hmm.
care of all the sides related to that particular challenge. So these kind of disputes, how do you work around them? And how do you convince or formalize a strategy for such kind of high stake issues?
Like most of the government issues I have worked in, there have been times I've been on the other side. I would really think that we have to be very, very pro solution oriented. And going through litigation is tedious. Government doesn't really want that. They want solutions, they want settlements. A person as a lawyer, one's duty is not to just be very good at presenting yourself in the court. It's to have that intention to be solution oriented, to tell the people responsible that this is the realistic judgment, this is the realistic order we are about to get or will get in future, and this is where we are. So why not just try to get to a solution now instead of waiting the court to take its due time to come to a order? So especially with all these government PSUs, my intention is to have an arbitration clause. Their intention also, it reflects that they want to avoid litigation, they want to go into arbitration, they want to have quick redressals. And as a lawyer, as their panel counsel, my job is to ensure that the least amount of litigation happens and we can come to an understanding the earliest moment.
Thanks for sharing those insights. So, when we started the conversation, you talked about data privacy and other aspects, and your background is also in data protection and privacy management, along with the trainings in Canada and Europe. How do you see the kind of evolving landscape for
Hmm.
Indian DPDP Act, that is Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and where do you see that we stand while we are comparing these kind of acts, especially the new technology-driven acts around the world, and what India is doing? What kind of difference do you see, and how do you make sure that you practice it in the best format possible, keeping in mind your international clients as well?
Well, I really think our act mirrors and reflects the GDPR which in Europe. And a lot of concepts are there. So very, very similar, very progressive. But just coming to the ground reality, I mean, I think this conversation should be more reflective of what really happens. And in our practice, there has been a lot of what I've seen, a lot of sharing of documents within law firms, within lawyers, through WhatsApp, through emails. So one should be really, really careful with all that. about sharing confidential information, even amongst our peers. And first, that cultural shift has to be there to really understand that there will be consequences. In general conversations, I see a lot of lawyers talk in the cafeteria talking about their cases. One has to be very, very careful not to disclose your clients, not to disclose anything personal, or not even say something which a person can really predict that who am I speaking about. So that cultural shift has to be first there with respect to privacy. And I think that's missing. Also, the way our websites are made, or our shopping websites are made, or any website for that matter is there. It's not humanly possible to read the cookie, the privacy policy, etc. So really, there's a great disbalance. You can take a consent of a person on a 300-page document within 1 second, and a person just has to click OK. It's not humanly possible to read 300 pages before entering a website. So again, regulation has to come from the side of the government or from an authority, which we are doing, because it's not contract between equals. Like, because you're one big corporation, you have so much power, you have great lawyers to draft these contracts, and you expect a layman who's buying maybe a golf club, and then you have to sign these pages. You need to okay in a way is implied signature to accepting their policies. So there's definitely a lot of disbalance. And what I've seen is that I go to a shop and they ask for your numbers so easily, like it's nothing. Like I have to give it. They don't even bother with your consent. If you need the bill, you need to give the number. I'm like, what kind of a relationship is this? You're putting pressure that if I need the bill, I need to give you the number. And then the number just is available out there. And you'll be getting random calls, promotions. So where do we draw the line? Why don't we have that power as consumers to say no, to say to the company that, okay, forget me, erase my data, whatever you have on me. These provisions are there, but to what extent are we really incorporating it, and what extent are we really educating the consumers about it? I mean, there's a huge gap. And I think as a consumer, we are on the losing end of this battle. But it's the way the private data is shared. I think everybody would have experienced talking amongst their friend about a certain product, and then they see the advertisement of that online all of a sudden. So who's listening to what? To what extent is our data being shared? There's a lot of gray area in this, and there's absolutely lack of transparency and a lot of disbalance of powers between us and the technology, the people out there who wants the data. So regulation has to come from the government, from the authorities, so that there's some fear in the people of in the corporations or technology related companies to be careful with the data.
So true that we should be aware about our privacy as well.
Yeah.
As the child's privacy, nobody talks about child rights as well, which is something which is absolutely missing from what we are doing. Although it is there in the act, but if we are not aware of our own privacy, then how are we going to be inspired by child rights and other aspects?
Absolutely. I think that it is just that act, that legislation has to reflect or incorporated in the societal culture. And there's seriously a big gap when it comes to that. Everything, even if you visit somebody's apartment, these days they need your phone number, data, everything to let you in. And then you have been profiled, and you don't know who's buying this profile. How many times have you visited the hospital? Maybe the insurance company is buying the profile. So there's a lot of sharing of data which a person not expressly consented to. Consent can be skewed in a way that you click OK on a cookie policy or something like that. And then in a way, legally, the companies are protected, but is it really a balanced contract? I don't think so. The consumers, the regular people have been taken for a ride.
Absolutely true. It's forced consent. We have to give them our numbers. Like you said, you have to give your number, without that, you will not get the bill. These very small things, they seem small, but they are absolutely huge.
It's
Keeping all
really
this kind of technological advent and the kind of issues that arise with it and the regulations that are required, you have extensively worked in this field as well. How do you keep yourself ahead of the times and learn about all these things? Where do you learn from? What kind of research do you do around this? And what will be your advice to the younger generation who's entering this particular field in this specifically technologically advanced era? Things have changed before COVID and after COVID kind of world we are living. So how do you see yourself, your practice, your firm, and how do you see young generation to learn from it?
Right at the outset, I would say the old schoolers, the law firms, they are hesitant. Even today, they are very non-AI. They have these internal policies. But AI is so powerful, it's not so easy to just reject it outright. The more realistic thing will be to adopt it and regulate it. And I think younger generation, we know that you are using AI. We know that you are using it for research and drafting and whatnot. So doesn't have to be ashamed of it. Be outright, be transparent to your bosses and professors and say that this is the kind of research you've collated. And if, as long as you're using a tool, do a good work. That's what matters. As long as that tool is not misused to the extent of plagiarism, I think it's absolutely fine. One should adopt. Have been using AI tools for my scheduling. So imagine earlier I used to type so and so versus the state versus the case number, etc., etc. Now I can just I have this app. I can just update my data, say put it up in my calendar for so and so date. So everybody's using it, and younger people are using it. It's a great tool. So imagine going through a contract of 200 pages, and you really want to understand if there is any loopholes with what are exactly is the termination conditions. For instance, if you just go to the termination clause, there will be clauses talking about termination, but you need to really holistically understand the contract, because a lot of times these clauses have bearing on each other, and a lot of time these clauses are extensions of each other. So you cannot read these clauses in isolation. Let's say if one person uses AI to really understand the termination clause, or let's say whatever period indemnity clause in totality, and see how it assists you. So use AI like an assistant. You wouldn't put your assistant's work directly to the client. You'll ask a paralegal to help you out and then filter things out for you, and then you apply your legal mind to it, and then take it ahead. So that as long as you're using it as a paralegal or a AI agent, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. There's no shame around it. I know, I mean, partners are really upset because of some interns who used AI and found these AI hallucinated case laws which do not exist. And this I'm talking about some tier one law firm. So it is concerning, but use it as an agent. If let's say if your intern brings you a case law, you don't just directly cite it, right? You would go and go to SCC and a more legitimate sort of legal resources and cross check it. But in essence, I would just like to say be adaptable, see how the situation is changing. Very soon, there won't be a lot of paralegal as a job may become obsolete. Stenographers may become obsolete. So be realistic. There is an aspect of what's morally correct and what's not. Let's not go there at the moment. But what's real is that yes, jobs are going to move. A lot of clerical jobs will go away. So be mindful of that and use this as an opportunity to do really good legal work. Be better than your seniors because they didn't have these tools. Now, your senior would have taken a day to read a contract. You can do it much faster and try to do the lawyer analytical stuff because your clerical stuff is taken care of. So use it like you have hired an intern or a junior paralegal, and then be the person who vets everything before forwarding it to the court or client.
Thank you, Kunal, for talking about all these aspects of AI and how to use those kind of tools for your own benefit and for your work's benefit. It has been a very enriching conversation with you where you have talked about your understanding and the way your seniors have helped you. All of it hopefully is going to help our learners to understand how they should pave their way in being not only first generation lawyer, but I would say first generation using technology at this level, because this is something which is absolutely new for legal fraternity. So thank you for this conversation.
Just adding one last thing with respect to the AI, it's bridging the gap. Imagine if nobody has the excuse now that I do not have good professors, I do not have good education, my college isn't good enough. You have these sources, you can get access to a lot of great sources online. So there is no excuse now. The level playing field has been made because of AI and technology. So you can be anyone, you can be first generation or third generation lawyer. Now the third generation lawyers, they have their own challenges being under the shadow of someone a great lawyer sometimes. So that kind of sometimes limits the third or the fourth generation lawyer. So a lot of these seniors, which I know, they have sent their kids in absolutely different chambers, far away from their chamber, so that they learn to stand on their own feet. I see a lot of LinkedIn posts about first generation, second generation differences. It's not as rosy as people think to be a third generation lawyer or a fourth generation lawyer. One always has to show merit, and everybody in a sense is a first generation lawyer. This is not like a food business or a restaurant that okay, it just came to you. Everybody has to show merit. Everybody has to show their skills to really last in this profession. So in essence, now that AI is there, the technology, so easier to navigate cases, easier to do research. One should learn all that, and this is a great time to be a lawyer in a way that now you have a level playing field. You can go against the best.
Now we have a different field where seniors are struggling.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel that first generation lawyers have a little bit easy because they do not have to compete with themselves,
Yeah.
their senior generation and their previous generation, because it becomes a big challenge to compete with their own. And somehow, we first generation lawyers tend to find some way that we can do a little better with technology.
Yes.
Everyone have had their beautiful journeys and you had your own. And thanks for sharing that. I was about to say that you being a new dad to twins, you carved out this much time. It's a pleasure for us. Thank you so much. Hope to have further more conversations with you and learn from your learnings, whatever you have gone through and whatever challenges you have had. Hope the learners enjoy this conversation with us at Superlawyer. Thanks, Kunal, for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Divya, Ms. Anshi, for organizing this and having me. It was a pleasure speaking to you.